Horgle the Anvil. The destruction of his Kriel at the talons of Everblight's legion set Horgle Iron Strike on the solitary path filled with fiery conflict across the wilds of Western Amorin. Along the way, he had many opportunities to perfect both his craftsmanship as a smith and his powers as a warlock. Though he remains a loner, uncomfortable among even his own kind, he has found a new sense of purpose in forging weapons and armor for the Kriels. Even as he provides his assistance, he strikes to persevere his autonomy, refusing to put down roots and always requiring compensation for his labor. Most who know him who describe Horgle as grim and mercenary, but the warlock's actions are rooted in what he believes is the best for the Kriels. While there is no denying that he has a bleak and pessimistic outlook, that has never prevented him from pitching in to fight for the kin or lending his trolls to face down their foes. Horgle's journey have tended to draw him toward sights of bloodshed and mayhem, more in answer to the fires within him than though any deliberate intent. He reached the Bloodstone Marches to visit the newly established settlement founded in the shadows of Mount Sheleth Breen by the old Thornwood Kriels, just as they were assailed on all sides by the ravaging Gatormen and Faro. Amid this crucible of carnage, Horgle truly came into his own as he put aside all hesitation to stand among the kin in defense of their home. This battle also forced him to re-examine his basic values. It became apparent to the young warlock that the real and tangible apocalypse was taking place all around him, and that only unflinching resolve and the ability to make hard choices would see the Kriels endure. In the aftermath, when most of the United Kriels departed for new lands, giving up the wilds that were theirs by right, Horgle remained behind to beat back those forces that assailed his people. While he still relishes the opportunity to exact revenge on the minions of Everblight, he is more than willing to unleash his simmering rage against any enemies of the Kriels. He has made tentative contact and friendship with several of the greatest lore masters in the United Kriels, individuals like Harlock Doomshaper and Ragnar Skysplitter, who have tasked him with the restoring of the great weapons of the Kriels. When not laboring at the forge, Horgle fights with sword and hammer to protect the flickering, guttering flame that is the Trollkin race. So the magical blacksmith of the Trollkin has come to his own. He is a full-fledged warlock with his fiery sword and his fiery hammer. I'm not sure if his hammer causes fire, but it looks like something that would cause fire. So let's read his Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes, see how good he is, see what he's best at. Because most warlocks are usually, predispositioned to be either a unit-based caster or a war beast caster, or just a magic caster. I don't know. Sometimes they have all three, but let's see what he's got. And we, of course, are going to start with his stat line, because why not? So his speed is 5, his magic attack is up to 6, yay. His mat's now a 7, so he's a little bit more of a melee caster than he was before. His defense is 14, and his arm jumped up to 17, so compared to his journeyman caster, that is a lot better armor. He has a 6 arc and a 12 control range. He is still tough, and he still has immunity to fire. Of course, that makes sense, because he is technically a blacksmith, so I imagine that makes sense. His abilities are still... he still has burnt meat, so that's always fun. Warbeast in this models battle group can charge enemy models suffering from the fire continuous effect without being forced, because the smell of it just apparently is enticing. And then the second ability he has been given is a Field Marshal Fire Resistance. Cohort models in this models gain resistance to fire, so they can't suffer the continuous fire effect, and if they are being damaged by fire, it's 1 less die on damage per Mark 4. So that's even better. His weapons, well, technically he just has something called Forged Weapons now. Instead of his original 2 hammer sword strike, he just has a dual weapon. And his abilities on these are a Mat 7, Range 1, Pound 12, both are magical and both cause continuous fire. The chain attack ignition is still the same, so if this model hits the same model with both its initial attacks with this weapon, after resolving the attacks the model hit, the other enemy models within 2 inches of that model suffer a Power 12 fire damage roll and the continuous fire effect. These damage rolls are not considered to be or have been caused by an attack, which means you cannot boost them individually, so that is a thing. But the ability to catch everybody within 2 inches of the model being hit twice If he's going up against something, say, large base size or higher, that's everybody within 2 inches of that guy's base. So that could be a huge AoE. So that is a fantastic. And even though POW 12 doesn't seem like a lot, he's still throwing fire around, and his guys love fire. So you zap him in and you send his war beast in after him. It's gonna be a delicious barbecue, I imagine. Then we have his feat, of course. It's called Stoking the Flames. That appears to be spelled the same, so we'll see if it's the exact same spell. Friendly faction models gain boosted attack and damage rolls against enemy models in Horgle's control range, suffering the fire continuous effect. So that is kind of, well, I'm not going to say broken at all, because that's actually kind of epic. So friendly faction models gain boosted attack and damage rolls against models in his control range. So that means that his war beast also gain their burnt meat ability on there as well. And so so everybody just gets to charge for free against those guys. So yeah, that's kind of nice. And then it's every model in his army, which then I imagine his spell list probably also covers some ability to toss fire onto some people. So let's read that real quick. So we have, it looks like his Consuming Flames have been replaced with Cleansing Fire. Consuming Flames, if we still had it, it's a range 10 AoE 4, POW 12 fire damage rolls, and models hit suffer the fire continuous effect. That's been cleared out. We replaced it with Cleansing Fire. Cleansing Fire causes fire damage on a critical hit. Models hit suffer fire continuous effect. So it's not automatic anymore, but it is more powerful at a POW 14. And it's an AoE 2, so you're splitting hairs on that particular one. So, but it's a pretty decent fire spell. His second spell, Fire Starter, hasn't changed at all. Target a model in the spellcaster's battle group. That model's melee and ranged attacks cause continuous fire. So that's automatic continuous fire. It's also upkeepable too, so you can give somebody in your battle group the ability to launch fire with his ranged weapons and just catch people on fire automatically. So very, very useful. His other spell, Inviolable Resolve. Probably spelled that or pronounced that wrong, but that's how I do. Target friendly faction model / unit gain +2 arm and cannot be knocked down or moved by a push or a slam, which is basically what it did in the previous. So giving them armor is always very useful for the Trollkin, because they already have kind of beefy armor anyway, and at tough, you just force people to have to do a lot more damage to you before you have to start rolling. So. And then the last one that he has is Solid Ground. While in the spellcaster's control range, friendly faction models cannot become knocked down or pushed and gain resistance to blast. And having blast resistance in this new Mark IV is actually incredibly useful, because blast resistance, any kind of blast damage, they suffer only 1 damage die for blast damage, and well, that's it. That's a very useful thing, especially if you have a lot of pigs around that don't have super high armor. So, and not being able to knock down, they gain super tough too, so that makes them even more done up. I would say this guy just likes to toss fire around on people, so the more guys that you can get to play with fire, the better his feat's going to be in the long run. And he's got 2 different spells that can cause fire with continuous effect. One's automatic, one has to crit, and as long as he's swinging on people. So, very frontline caster, and at least he has the defense and armor to make him a little bit more beefy in the front line, and the mat to make up for that too. So, yeah, get his group up there with everybody else, make them all the front line, keep them going.